just reapplied my lip balm. I have my favourite jumper on. The heat wave in London has subsided. 3 words, life is good. Another 3 words, let's celebrate that. 2 words, thank God. 1 word, finally. The heat wave in London has been no joke. I'm not myself when there's a heat wave. I think some people deal with the heat in a gorgeous way. You know, they're out there tanning. I tried to do that, got completely and utterly sunburnt to the point where I'm looking down at my knee right now because I am wearing shorts and my skin is currently peeling. So that's really fun and sexy. A lovely little visual for you audio listeners. Something, you know, when you're listening to podcasts, you might be thinking, oh my God, this is so inspirational. You come on my podcast, it's me talking about my peeling skin from sunburn. Like, yes. Guys, welcome back to Self-Interrupted with Kit Costello. I am Kit Costello. The rumors are true. Today, we're talking about a constant pursuit for validation. My relationship with validation hasn't necessarily changed. I think I'm always searching for validation, but I think my relationship with validation recently has matured, and I'm able to look at past versions of myself seeking validation in a way of hindsight. And I can now see versions of myself and where I went wrong and who I was looking at for validation, and maybe why in the future I won't be looking at those people for validation anymore. And I'm really excited for this episode, to be honest, and equally excited for the Interrupt Me this week, which is at the end of the episode. If you don't know, I do an Interrupt Me at the end of each episode of the podcast, and it's somewhat of an agony aunt. You guys send in your submissions, I give you advice on what you're going through in your life. But before all of that, I always do the catch up of the week. I tell you guys what I've been getting up to. So let's get into the catch up of the week. I'll be honest, I'm so happy that we got past the intro because I'll tell you what, I've been trying to record it for the past maybe 10-15 minutes, and each time I get it wrong, slip up on my words, I feel my forehead sweating a bit more. I may have prematurely decided to wear a jumper because I will say, still slightly warm. It's maybe around 24 degrees in the UK, and I am in a shed. And that kind of contains heat. So I walked into the studio today, the shed. I sat down and I said, oh, okay. So maybe the jumper wasn't the best idea, but I'm kind of, it's a form of manifestation. Because like I mentioned, this heat, it's getting on my nerves, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer. I never do want to be a Debbie Downer. But like I said, the heat's already pissing me off because I got burnt. I got burnt by the sun. That was my fault. I was sitting out on the patio with my brother's girlfriend, and we were having a little gossip. God forbid the girls have a gossip. But I feel like the devil came to punish me and said, here, have a taste of hell. Let me burn your legs real quick. And the worst part of it was I was crossing my legs. So I now have a sunburn in the shape of my crossed legs. So half of my thigh isn't sunburned because it's where my other leg was placed on top of it. So I have these stripy zebra legs. Ugh, don't even get me started, guys. It's been so bad. Okay, major announcements. First major announcement, I took a week break last week. I wasn't here last week. And if you follow the Instagram, you would have known that. If you don't follow the Instagram, I can only apologize. I can just imagine that maybe you were yearning for the episode. So I'm sorry about that. However, I've decided that the podcast going forward, I'm going to do 4 episodes, then a week break, 4 episodes, then a week break until the end of the season, because frankly, the idea of having a week break keeps me sane. Sometimes doing this podcast is quite intense. I do the podcast myself, I come up with the ideas myself, I edit it myself, and sometimes the episode topics are pretty personal, and it's very telling to what I'm going through in my life. It's quite intense to be talking in depth about issues that you're going through. Though I love to do it, it's quite draining. So a little week break was very needed. And also it just so happened that that week break happened to be during the heat wave. And I know you're thinking, Kit, you must have enjoyed that. No, like I literally was in my bed laying down because it was the only cool room in the house. Like I needed that week to not have to sit in this hot studio. Next major announcement, baby bangs. Yes, if you're watching the video episode, you, I hope, would notice that I have baby bangs. Baby bangs being a fringe that comes about 1 inch or half an inch above your eyebrow. Not to be confused with micro bangs, which are just like 1 inch of hair from your hairline. I don't have micro bangs. I am baby bang. I'm baby bang. Okay, so equally, if you're watching the video episode and you're thinking, Kate, your bangs are crazy right now, haven't styled them. I hate coming on the podcast thinking I look good and going into the editor and being like, I look a mess. Hence the title of this episode being A Constant Pursuit for Validation. I need people to think that I look good. And I'm trying to, like, you know, weave my way out of that. And a way of doing that is coming on looking a mess, editing it knowing I'm a mess, and that's okay. If I came on this episode and I was like, first time debuting the bangs, they need to look perfect, I'd be editing being like, why did I get baby bangs? Now I'm pissed off because they don't look good. But if I start from the bottom, it's only up from here. And let's celebrate that. Equally, I quite like a messy looking, I think it's quite sexy. Messy looking hair, frazzled. I was thinking about this earlier today. I love someone that looks a little bit like, ooh, they've been up to things. They've been doing things today, you know? Someone turns up like on a bit of a coffee date or, you know, like a date in general and they look a little bit frazzled. I'm like, you have a life that you're living, and I appreciate that. You know, you don't have 100%. Yeah, right. Next major announcement, I took over 415 selfies on the 28th of May, and I only like 6 of them. So I'm going to put it back to the title of this episode, A Constant Pursuit for Validation. So I was out. I was pretty sad this day. I'll get into this a bit later in the catch up of the week. I was pretty sad on this particular day, and I decided that randomly I was going to go to the village, a couple villages away from me, just to kind of spend a bit of time by myself and debut my baby bangs to the village, a couple villages away from me, because of course they needed to see them. Don't be ridiculous. So there I was in this village. I picked up my cookie from the bakery, freshly baked that morning. Thank you. Triple choc cookie. It was melting in the bag. Like, let's celebrate, truly. I was walking down, saw a hot guy manning a coffee stall in the park. We double looked at each other. We did nothing about it. Like, it's just, life was good, you know? I was feeling a little bit insecure about the baby bangs, but I was also feeling a little bit sexy because I had baby bangs. It was like, wait, I took a risk. It's kind of paying off. Need to double check. Double checking was me being under a tree, taking 415 selfies. Oof. And sorry, I'm just being honest. Sometimes there are days where you just have to, I don't know, like now saying out loud, 415 selfies does sound insane. I was probably trying to get like a good photo for about 20 minutes. Yeah. And I don't think that makes me a villain. And I think you guys need to grow up. If you think that makes me a villain, I think you need to like look inward. You know, I've done photo shoots as a model where I've been getting paid and we've been taking photos for 6 hours straight. So me doing a little 20-minute pit stop, taking a couple selfies, maybe 415, that's not a couple, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, I liked 6 of them. And you know what? It was better than me not liking any of them. Right. Oh, my final major announcement of the week is porridge is back in a big juxtaposing way. Previously, oh, I read that completely wrong. Porridge is back in a big way, juxtaposing my previously allegations of it being out. No, that's also wrong. Porridge is back in a big way, juxtaposing my previous allegations of it being out. However, I would then go on to contradict this, as I wrote this yesterday, and I would go back on my word and say that porridge is actually out again. Porridge was back in for a split second when the heatwave died for a day. I was like, oh my god, porridge, like, let me tap back in. Then the heat wave today has been pissing me off and it's slightly back, the heat wave. So porridge is out again. But what's in, I will say, frozen blueberries. I love a frozen blueberry. Okay. The catch-up of the week. Let's get into it. Met up with my friend Emma. We went to a cafe in East London. This was like a very spontaneous trip for Emma and I. I was in my village, I was helping my mum out with something, and the train from the village to London was leaving in like a couple of minutes, and I said, Mum, hit the gas, get me to the station. So bless her, she did. Thank you, mother. Got on the train, got to Emma's. We hung out in her flat for a second, had a little debrief, and all of a sudden we found ourselves walking down the street. We were sharing wired earphones. That's the first time I've ever done that with someone. Like walking down the street, sharing wired earphones. I said, this is so romantic. We were listening to Fuck the DJ by Eli. If you haven't listened, definitely tap in. It was a banger. Like we were walking down Emma's street, and she was just shocked at every new chord progression, every new lyric. She was like, oh my God, this pop classic. Anyway, we found ourselves at a cafe, and I bought myself, okay, I don't know if this is, I call it Victorian peasant food, but it's East London cafe. So it's just like classic East London vibes where it's a few seasonal veg on a platter with a bit of sourdough bread. And I call it like Victorian peasant food because in my mind that's what the girls were eating back in the Victorian era. And you know, I would join them, but I loved it. I do love my seasonal veg being tomato, avocado. What else was on the menu? Oh, it was a boiled egg. It was very rogue. And guess how much that was? £14. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I got that. Emma got a matcha, and she also got a little slice of cake, and we ate it outside of this cafe. And it's moments like that, once again, I've mentioned it on the podcast before, it's just like, oh, London, you know, like it's just such a London day where you look around and you're like, oh, okay, everyone at this cafe is a little bit jobless, and that's okay. Like we're not unemployed, but we're jobless, and there's a difference between those two, and it's important to distinguish that. But yeah, we were jobless at the cafe, we were eating our food. And then eventually it got to the point where we were like, okay, it's hot. Because mind you, it was boiling. I was wearing a grey top and you could see the sweat patches. But as I've said once again on this podcast, sweat patches are a sign of living. And also, I find sweat patches a little bit sexy sometimes. Like on the right person. I remember I was dating someone. I say dating, I went on one date and then he completely ghosted me, and then a week later hard launched a girlfriend on Instagram. Don't even get me started. I can't even get into it. Anyway, I remember meeting up with him once and I was worrying all the way walking to his house like, oh my God, I'm going to have sweat patches. And I got to his house and he had sweat patches and I was like, oh, so hot. Like, ugh. I don't know why I even said that. Anyway, I had sweat patches and we went to the corner shop and we got Calippos. Calippos, if you don't know, are like an ice lolly, an icicle, an ice pop. Yeah, we had ice lollies and we then went and sat in a little park. Then we walked back to Emma's. I left Emma at hers. I was gonna walk around London, but it was just too hot, and that sucks when it's just, oh my God, the train. Don't even get me started on the trains. Actually, this week it's just been one battle after another. So the trains after I saw Emma delayed. Great. Like I previously mentioned, I went to the village a few villages over from me, and that's where I famously took over 415 selfies that day. So taking you back to that day, I was walking around the village. It got to the point where I was like, okay, I've walked around, I've taken 415 selfies, maybe let's go back home. Now there is a way for me to get back home from this village to London, then get my usual train from London back home. And it's a bit of an extra journey, but driving to the village to pick me up is also a journey for my parents. So I thought, I'm going to save them the travel. I'm going to get the train to London, then back to my village, because that's a good child. You know, I'm just going to say, hey, can you pick me up from the village? And they're going to be like, how did you get there? And I'm going to be like, guys, don't worry about it. I took the train. So there I am. I get the train from the village that I'm in to London, and it's a gorgeous journey. Eventually I arrive in London and I get the Elizabeth line to my destination of another part in London, which is where I then have to get my train. And I'm now on the platform of where my train should be to take me to my village, and it's deserted. And I'm thinking, oh, okay. But it is also like maybe a Wednesday and in the middle of the day. So I'm thinking, oh, well, you know, people are at work. It's not a shock. And I'm walking down this platform and someone goes, hey, hey, hey. And I say, oh, don't know what that's about. And then he just says, hey. And I turn around, I say, hi. And he's wearing high vis and he says, this platform's closed. And I said, well, why is the platform closed, honey? I have a train to catch. And he said, no, you don't. The trains have all been cancelled. My heart sinks. I said, the trains have been, he said, yeah, all the trains and the tubes have been cancelled and delayed. I said, oh, I've just come from I need to get back to my village. And he said, where's your village? And I said where it is. And he literally laughed. He said, I don't know how long that's going to take you to get back. Mind you, I've done this out of the goodness of my heart so my parents don't have to make a 20, 30-minute travel to come pick me up from a village. It's now taken me about 40 minutes to get to London, and it's going to take me an extra 40 minutes to get home on a normal day. But now all the trains have been cancelled and delayed. I don't even know if I'm going to make it home. So I now go all the way to King's Cross. I'm in King's Cross. It's carnage in there. All the trains on the boards have been cancelled. Everyone is like losing their minds. It's hot. It's sweaty. There are pigeons flying around in King's Cross station. Everyone's mad. Eventually, a couple of the tube lines open up. I'm on the Piccadilly line. It's hot. I'm sweating. There are people staring at me. It's just always that way. It's like some random person just staring at you for the whole tube journey. And it gets to a point where like, okay, now I've stared back at you for like 6 seconds and you haven't looked away, so you win. Like, I don't even have the strength to look at you any longer to make you look away from me. Anyway, eventually I got home. That's the moral of that story. Don't be nice to your parents. Don't try and save them time because you just waste yours. Back to the heat wave. It was the heat wave. I was spending a lot of time in my bedroom like I previously mentioned. But then I also was spending time outside. We recently got a hammock in the garden. And yeah, I was using that to my benefit. Once again, I was taking selfies in the hammock and I'm sorry about it. I've been taking a few too many selfies recently and it has been pissing me off because I get the camera app out and I'm like, whoa, why do we don't even need to be doing this right now. Like I'm on a hammock reading a book. I don't need to be proving to anyone for their validation that I'm on this hammock reading a book. I was reading on the hammock. It sounds really romantic. I was maybe reading for 15 pages and then I was just like, oof, okay. I don't think I have the mental capacity right now to care about this book any longer. So let's put it down and just lay. And you know what? I did that. You know, I laid down. And honestly, this is a very sweet moment. I was laying in the hammock. I was looking over the fields of the farm and looking upward. There were just like tons of tree leaves because our hammock is in between 2 trees. And I remember just thinking like, I'm going to look back on my life in like 20, 30 years time. And I'm going to think, I wish I could go back to this moment. I have those moments a couple of times a year where I am so like hyper aware of the moment that I'm in and the privilege that I have of just being, I suppose, at peace and just in a certain tranquility that I kind of bookmark it anyway. Oh my God. Okay. Next update of the week is baby bang haircut. Someone took a photo of me and it ruined my day. Okay, so back to the baby bangs. The day I got my baby bangs, I was very lucky to get my hair cut with Salt, which is a hair salon in London. And big shout out to Salt. They did my hair. They gifted me a haircut in exchange for a video. Because if you don't know, I am an influencer, guys. You need to remember this. Like, I get things for free. I just do. I think it's kind of crazy and ridiculous, but I will not stop. Like, if there's something guys, listen, I'm sorry, I'm so hyper aware of it at this point. I'm like, if there's something I can get for free, I'm just gonna go to my management and be like, hey, listen, can I get this for free? And I recognized that Salt had followed me on TikTok and I thought, let's work together. I'm a businesswoman at the end of the day. Anyway, I didn't really know that they were going to be taking photos of me throughout my hair cutting experience. So there I was, getting my hair washed and having film photos taken of me because they're like a really cool, trendy hair salon. So they only shoot on film camera. Anyway, I was getting my hair cut. Film photos were being taken of me. That was all fine. I was taking videos myself for my video that I was taking in exchange for the haircut. After I got my haircut, someone took a photo of me and was like, oh, you look so good, let me take a photo of you. And they sent it to me and I was going through my photos as I was walking out of the salon and I came across this photo and I was like, I didn't take this photo. Whose photo is this? And it was a photo of me and I don't think I've ever looked worse. And I know that day I looked good. So I was pissed off. And I know that sounds so vain and I'm so sorry. I feel like this whole episode I've just been talking about like photos of me and I've taken like 400 selfies. But someone, you know, when someone takes a photo of you and you were having a good day, and then a singular photo is like, it changed the trajectory of the thought process of who you are and also your day. And it sounds really vain, but it wasn't even necessarily about the way I looked. It was about like my stance. Like, I thought I had good posture and like a confident stance, but in this photo I looked like it can only be comparable to like a little mouse. I looked like a little mouse. It wasn't that I necessarily looked bad, it's that I looked a bit like, I didn't look confident. I looked a little bit like a mouse. I can't describe it. A mouse with baby bangs. Like, oh my God, a mouse with baby bangs. And in the photo was someone taking a photo of me with a film camera. So I was like, oh my God, this moment has been caught not only on an iPhone, but also on film camera. Okay. The last update of the week is Emma's game night. Yes, a second mention for Emma. Emma threw a little games gathering, which was really exciting. Yeah, it was a few of us sitting around Emma's kitchen table, drinking drinks and playing a few card games, which was really lovely. I love moments like that. Again, it was hot, it was sunny, but it wasn't too hot, it wasn't too sunny. It was sensible. Thank you, London, for that. You weren't being too crazy with the heat. You were being sensible with it. I romanticized my journey as I got off a stop early, walked through a park, went to a corner shop, picked up some crisps, and then got on the next train to Emma's. And oh my goodness, caveat to this, the park that I walked through, a previous day, I had actually been in that park. It was actually the day that I had seen Emma at that cafe. I'd left Emma's, went to this park to wait for my train. I was sitting in this park, and then a guy came and sat near me, and I could tell that it was kind of flirty vibes between us. We kept looking at each other over like a course of 30 minutes. And then I pretended that I was leaving because I was like, he's not going to come up to me until I leave, so I need to pretend to leave. So I get up and pretend to leave, and then he comes up to me and he's like, what's your name? I was like, oh, my name's Kit. What's your name? As soon as he started speaking, I was like, oh my God, you're very young. And by very young, I mean like he was maybe 20, 21. But to me, it's like, no, I'm not dating anyone younger than me, in frankness. Like, I only date people that are older than me. So instantly it was like, oh my God, paternal vibes. Like, yes. And he was American, and he was like, yeah, I've come over from America, and I'm on a backpacking trip. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like, instantly I was talking to him like he was a child. Apologies to that boy. But yeah, he was so sweet, and he had a lot of confidence to come up to me, and I appreciate that. Like, bring back the willingness to go up to someone. And honestly, I'm trying to be inspired by that boy, even if it's platonic. Going up to someone and being like, hey, I love your hair. I try my best to do that. I do it to a lot of women a lot of the time. I say like, oh, you look really gorgeous today. You look really pretty. And I hope it comes off in the right way, because I just think it's, you know, nice to be complimented. Anyway, romanticizing your life is also important. That's what I did when I was going to Emma's. I found myself in the park, walking through, went to the corner shop, got the crisps, then found my way to Emma's. And I was eating crisps all night. We were eating truffle crisps and dips. And then I made everyone tea at the end of the night. It was just really quite special. Then I got an Uber home. And Emma has an unreleased song, which I won't name, but it's a certain song. And I call the time in my Uber the certain song Time. So let's say the song was called Clock. I'd call it Clock Time. It's a really sad song, so I like to have my clock time in the Uber home. And I love an Uber ride home. I just wish they were a bit longer for me. I wish it was like maybe like an hour. My Uber ride home is 40 minutes, and I wish it was just a little bit longer. But yeah, that was my week. Nothing else has really been going on. I'm currently wearing eyeliner under my eyes because I recently got a new eyeliner called Frame from Glossier. It's like a dark brown color, and I just started putting it just underneath my lash line and on my lash line. So let me know what you think of that. I don't know, I might be editing this and being like, damn, you look a mess. Anyway, that's the catch up. Hope you've enjoyed. Now let's get into the topic of the week, which is a constant pursuit for validation. Much like many of my favorite episodes of this podcast, for this topic, I don't actually have that many notes. I'm just going to be speaking. I have certain pointers and subjects that I want to touch on throughout the topic of a constant pursuit for validation. But I really think that this topic has kind of been my life for a very long time, to be honest, but specifically the past few months. The past few months for me, like I've mentioned in a previous episode entitled Performing Through Sadness, it's been a tough few months for me, and I've been feeling pretty low about myself and about my life. And I think when you're feeling pretty low about yourself and about your life, you try and find validation and worth in other things and in other people, whether that's work, friendship, or romance. And I believe that there's good in that, but I think where I've been going slightly wrong previously in my life, and I'm sure in the future I'll do the same thing, is I rely on people's validation too much. And I find it's the only source of my self-acceptance in a way. And I think I've found that romantically, specifically, ever since I was younger, I've kind of held validation from men in a way that I don't expect from my friends and from myself. I almost have held it on a higher pedestal. And I think it's an embarrassing thing to admit, to be totally honest, that you hold validation from men in such a high regard. But in total frankness and honesty, I'd be lying if I said that I've overcome that, because I haven't. Like I've said in the catch up of the week, I've been taking so many selfies. And I know it sounds like a passing comment or a bit of a joke. And yes, it is. It's a comment that's like laced with like humor and almost like poking fun at myself. But that comes from feeling really insecure, taking so many photos of myself, posting them online for your validation, but also for validation of people that I'm dating or that I've dated. I want people to see me in a way that I frankly don't see myself at the moment. And I think that's really when I struggle the most with this concept of searching for validation, is when I don't feel good within myself and I want to paint this idea of myself and I want people to view that, you know, and if they're able to view that, I'm almost doing something right and I have control of my image and of my narrative. But I think specifically when it comes to romance, I've really had to take a step back from dating and from romance. Quite frankly, I'll be honest, dating for me is just not of interest at the moment. I think things that I'm going through in my life, I've become pretty numb to quite a lot of things. And I recently, just maybe a few hours ago, wrote a new Substack entitled Tattoos, Baby Bangs and Chronic Pain. And it's about the past few months for me and how I've been dealing with having chronic pain and my life kind of feeling like it's been shifting in ways that I can't control. And I think a way of me coping with this kind of change in my life that I can't control has been shutting down emotionally in a lot of ways, because I think I've been so emotional the past few months that the concept of caring about someone romantically, emotionally, has just been almost laughable, because I just haven't been caring about myself. But I think, you know, previously to that kind of state that I've been in of like not caring, I cared so much about what guys have thought about me. And, you know, I've done things that are just ridiculous to get guys' attention and to feel worthy. I think that's what it kind of comes down to, is this idea of worth and worthiness and feeling as though I don't have worth, specifically unless I'm romantically of interest to a man. And again, it's an embarrassing thing to admit, but it's a truthful thing to say, because it's how I have felt. And I'm hoping that throughout the process of what I'm going through in this stage of my life, you know, where I'm not feeling that way and I'm not feeling that way romantically or emotionally, that this is a learning lesson. You know, though the past few months of my life have been really hard, I think we go through things that are hard so that we can kind of overcome them and we learn new things without even really wanting to or knowing that we are. I didn't go into having chronic pain thinking, I'm going to come out of this not needing validation from men, because why would I even go into that situation thinking that? But I think it's something that you learn without even thinking it. Certain stages of your life, you learn certain things just because of the situation that you've been put into. And I think that's something that I've been able to learn just from comparison. Now that I'm like completely emotionally unavailable, I look back to the previous versions of myself, maybe just at the end of last year, or maybe just at this time last year, and I think, oh my God, the things I was doing. For example, this time last year, I was dating this boy, and he did not, when I tell you, take my hand, we're going to breathe for a few seconds, okay? Breathing in, hold it, breathing out. This boy did not care whether I lived or died in front of him. Not even if I was away in front. He could not care less. He couldn't. I found this guy. We went on a couple of dates. And I think it's really interesting. He was the first guy that I was like properly dating. I remember my intuition was saying, it wasn't even my intuition. It was the conversation. The conversation was bad. The kissing was absolutely awful, to the point where I had to text my friend Moya and be like, do you like kissing? I really hate kissing, because this guy was my first kiss. So the kissing was bad. The chat was terrible, but it was a guy that was paying me attention. So I thought that it was the right thing to do. And equally, I was like, well, he's obviously the one. So I've just got to keep on seeing him, and I've got to keep putting in all of this effort, because he is validating me. He's validating, my womanhood, my beauty. He's validating me. Looking back, he wasn't doing any of that. I think I just looked good next to him, to be honest, because our conversations were bad. I look back at like the dates that came after our first date, and it was all just, I just have like super cuts of us walking through London and him not holding my hand and making out with me only when like no one was really watching. And it was all just so bad, sitting in silence. What do you know about waking up at a guy's house, him smoking a cigarette out in his patio, and you just sitting in silence, being able to hear the planes go over your head, but thinking, ugh, this is love. Like, oh my God. I come on this podcast and I say this stuff so that if you're in a similar position, I want you to know that you have so much more worth to get out of that. The reason why I stayed in that kind of relationship was because I didn't view myself as worthy. I viewed myself as something as less than, and I viewed him on a pedestal, and that he was kind of giving me flowers every time we were going on a date. Not in real life, in my mind, because God knows this man was not buying me flowers. He was barely buying me pints at the pub. I was the one that was putting in the effort. I was the one that was turning up. I was the one that was, frankly, of interest. And I look back and I just think, my goodness, I had so much value, but I just didn't see it for myself. And I didn't even, on our last date where he was completely and utterly disrespecting me to my face, I was taking it because I just thought that it was what I had to do. It was the way I thought I should have been treated, because it's all I knew. And I think it's really important to trust your gut and trust your intuition in those situations, because I knew in the moment that I wasn't being treated in the way that I should have been treated. And it wasn't incredibly terrible, but I just knew it wasn't the best. And I think when you're treated in a way that does serve you and that, you do feel special, it's not even a case of you searching for that. When you're dating the right person, I think to be dating the right person, it's a case of you being in the right headspace as well. I don't know if this is right, what I'm about to say, but I don't think that you can be dating the right person. I don't think there is a right person if you're not in the right headspace at that time. Yes, I'm sure there are people that, you can learn to love yourself and you can learn your value through them. Of course, there are different situations. But I think personally, from my previous experience dating, I think the people that were good for me because I was in a good place. I think I would have relied on them too heavily for validation, and I probably would have ruined the relationship because of that. I think it kind of feeds into different attachment styles, which I'm not necessarily too keen on the concept of attachment styles, because I find that specifically in our generation, it feels pretty cut and dry. It's like, well, you're anxiously attached and this person's avoidantly attached, and there's nothing you can do about that. But I think that there is. I think that a lot of it just comes down to how you view yourself and the concept you have for yourself and what you're searching for in that other person. Are you searching for them to love you, or are you searching for them to validate you and to value you in a way that you don't value yourself? And are you expecting that value to save you? Because I think it's important for me personally, having dated, to go into relationships knowing my worth and knowing my value. I was talking to a friend about, going into relationships feeling a little bit broken recently. I was talking about, I feel as though recently I've been ruining a few relationships because I haven't felt fixed, or I have felt broken. And she said that, you don't have to go into every relationship feeling 100% your best. Mentally, specifically, if you're feeling a little bit down and a little bit depressed, it doesn't mean that you don't deserve love, because you do deserve love. And I think that's something that recently I've been really struggling with, because it's not that I don't think I'm good enough now. I'm at a point in my life now where I'm just feeling a bit low and I'm feeling a bit sad and a little bit depressed. And it's kind of making me stray away from relationships because I don't want to be a burden on people. And I think it's almost the opposite of someone validating me, and it's not wanting to affect someone's life negatively. And I think that's a conversation for a different day, to be honest. But I think it was really nice to hear that from my friends, saying that, I don't have to be perfect to be in a relationship. And I don't think you do. But I think previously I've gone into relationships expecting them to fix me and my self-worth rather than like my mental state. It's been a place of me being like, well, I don't feel pretty and dating you will make me feel pretty. But it doesn't work like that. I think if you're relying on someone to make you feel beautiful, I don't think it's a great foundation to start any relationship. And it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be work-wise as well. And it takes me back to modeling. And I have that down in my notes here. It's like, I think a lot of this concept of chasing validation is from being brought up and raised throughout my teenage years in an industry that strives from gaining validation externally. I was a teenager being put in front of adults, told that I wasn't good enough to walk a runway, and told that I had to lose or to gain weight or to become more beautiful to be considered to work for them. And being told that at such a young age is really hard. And if anything, it's almost like I picture it as though my bones hadn't fully formed yet in my body. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but stick with me. There are moments throughout like your childhood where your bones haven't fully developed, and as you're aging, your bones then develop and they strengthen. And throughout that time, it's like, you have to nourish your bones, and it kind of contributes to how tall you're going to be or how your bone health is going to be affected in the future. And for me, it was like my bones were forming through my metaphorical bones were forming through being in the modeling industry. And I think that has really negatively affected the way that I look at myself. I don't look at myself as really a person, to be honest. I look at myself as like a commodity. I look at myself as something to be sold, which I think also contributes to the conversation that I was having about the selfies that I was taking. It was kind of this concept of I'm not worth much if I'm not beautiful. And I'm trying to deconstruct that, because it's not the truth. I'm worthy on my ugliest day as much as I'm worthy on my most beautiful day. And I don't need someone telling me that, because I can tell myself that. It's something that I'm trying to learn, but it's been really tough, because understanding that, as a teenager, I was on set and learning the ways of people in an industry of quote beauty telling me how to be beautiful in the most like toxic and not sustainable ways, that has kind of bled into my day-to-day life now. And it's been something that I'm having to unlearn, and I'm trying my best to. And I think what honestly will heal that is going into that industry again from a point of view where it's not me chasing that validation from the person behind the camera, but from myself. Like, asking myself whether I look beautiful on this shoot or I don't. And if I don't, that's okay. I don't always have to look beautiful. You don't always have to look beautiful. I think that's really important to understand, is that like humans weren't made to be beautiful. We weren't made to be pretty. We were made to, God knows, I don't know why we were made, but I know that my life is not just to be pretty. And when we're talking about the constant pursuit for validation, it's not even just about being pretty. I find it very hard through my job as well. Being someone that works on social media, it's so numeric and analytic. And I'm sure that anyone that has social media, you know, we've grown up in a generation where Instagram likes are something that are meaningful to us. And it sounds ridiculous, and it is so ridiculous, but it's something that has been installed in us from a very young age. The generation that came before us created algorithms for us to be addicted to and then laugh at us for being addicted to them and for holding worth to them. And I think it's just so contradictory of those people, because you set this system up for us to be comparing ourselves to other people, to be comparing ourselves to a version of our past that maybe was more successful on social media or successful in our lives. It's a conversation that I'm now having with my friends about getting to the raw understanding of why we're doing what we love. And being a creative, a lot of the time creatives are now being made to platform themselves on social media, and I'm sure so many of you are in that position as well. It's so beautiful to have friends in a creative space where you can just de-skin that idea and get to the bones of the situation and understand that you are in this industry because you have a passion and a love for what you do. You're not in this industry necessarily because you want people to love you. You've just been made to feel like that's what you should feel. I'm in this industry, whether it's a model, whether it's being a podcaster or a writer, because I genuinely love it. I love podcasting. I get asked quite a lot of the time, like, how do you do that? How do you keep up with podcasting? How do you find something to talk about? It just comes naturally to me. I absolutely love this. And I think that that is what means something. When you genuinely love what you do, when you love what you're putting out, the validation from others is just a bonus. I think it's really interesting and important to understand that when you start trying to mold yourself into what you think people will want from you, and when that starts failing, when that version of yourself that you've molded yourself to be for success starts failing, that's when you feel like the most like a failure. Because in a way, it's betraying yourself. It's betraying the version of yourself that got into this industry or to this job or to this version of yourself for the love of it. Not only are you betraying that version of yourself, you're also now holding that validation to a higher regard because you know deep down that that's not what you want to do. However, when you go into doing something that you love and that you're passionate about, you can't fail. There's no failure there, because whether it gets the engagement that you want or it doesn't, there's no failure there because you've done it the way that you have wanted to do it. And that's what's important. And I think validation of all kinds falls back down to that. It's about stripping it and understanding to its core, are you confident in it? When I'm searching for validation in a dire way, it's because I am so insecure in what I'm doing. And that can be through work, through friendships, and through romantic relationships. If I'm feeling insecure in any of those fields is when I'm searching and seeking for validation the most. And I don't like myself when I'm at that point. You know, when I'm downloading dating apps just for the sake of feeling hot. You know, I'm not even downloading dating apps to date anyone. It's just so that people say that I'm hot. I don't need people to tell me I'm hot. I know I'm hot. You know you're hot. Why are we waiting on people to tell us something that we already know? And it's shallow, and it's something that I don't necessarily feel pride in talking about, specifically talking about, you know, the romantic side of it and just wanting validation for my looks and my beauty. But sometimes it falls down to that. I'm getting to a place now, because of what I've been going through in the past few months, where I'm really just trying to toe the line between not caring at all and caring way too much about what people think about me. And I think there is a balance. And I think the balance comes from within. Like I've said, it is just about like having a foundational respect for yourself and a foundational respect for your art and for your craft. When you have that relationship with yourself, no one can really rock it. When you go through a breakup and you really have an innate respect for yourself and an innate love for yourself and an understanding that things will get better, your life really can't necessarily be rocked to the state that it would be if you were like super insecure. And I think that's something that I've found a lot of comfort in, is that knowing that I'm the one that can save me and that I'm the one that can get myself out of a situation that I don't want to find myself in, if that makes sense. And I'm really trying to do that at the moment. You know, this past few months, like I've mentioned, have been really tough for me, but I'm getting back on the horse. I'm not only getting on the horse, I'm also riding the horse. You know, I'm actually doing something while being in a good place. It's also been really important for me to understand that I don't need people to always validate the decisions that I make. I'm someone that tends to go to my friends quite a lot for validation in decision making. And I think a lot of that comes from not trusting myself 100%. And romantically, I had to stop asking my friends for advice when it came to dating. Not because I don't trust their advice or value their opinion, but because I felt as though it was kind of in a lot of ways ruining my dating life. Not because of them, but it was me. I was kind of dating people through my friends, if that makes sense. And it was important for me to kind of take a step back and value the respect and the opinion that I had of the person that I was dating, and valuing the experiences that I had had in my past with people. Because like I mentioned, I've dated people that have really disrespected me, and I have to learn from that. And going to my friends that don't know the situations that I've been in 100%, they can't give me well-rounded advice on what I need personally, because they haven't been through the things that I've been through with certain people, if that makes sense. Of course, I can give advice here and there, but it's been important to me to kind of understand the value of my thoughts and of my emotions with the people that I'm dating and my gut feelings. Because I think also when you bring certain relationships to the table of like friends, almost like the jury of your friends, and you get their opinion on it, it can almost dictate how you feel about the person. So recently I've been more romantically intuitive, and I think I want to bring that into my life in general as well, because I've really just been kind of all over the place in terms of validation, and recently my life has just been a bit of a mess, to be totally frank with you. The past few months have just been so hard for me, and finding validation through the most meaningless things has been so meaningful, because I've really just like not been in a good way. But since I've kind of been regaining a sense and a lease of life, I've been understanding that the things that I've been finding validation in have not been incredibly meaningful. So looking forward in my life, I'm really going to be validating myself more and praising myself more. I think that's where the validation comes from, is just like appreciating what you do and what you do well. I think I was saying to one of my friends, I'm really proud of what I've been doing. You know, the podcast, writing, I'm really proud of what I've been doing, and I love what I'm doing. And I think the career that I've built for myself, I'm very proud of that. And I think it's important for you to look inwards and really name a few things that you're proud of. Understand the things that you've done for yourself and that people haven't necessarily done for you, because that's what's been really kind of inspiring me recently, is understanding that a lot of the things that I love come from within. Yeah, I'm just very, very proud of that. I think also I've come to the understanding that me chasing validation is me running away from insecurities that I have. I've had to just sit with the insecurities recently and uncomfortably have conversations with myself about why I have those insecurities, whether it's to do with my personality, and the way that I treat myself or others, or whether it's to do with my physical appearance, whether it's to do with my mental state. They're tough conversations to have, but it's a way of learning, it's a way of evolving, and it's a way of growing. And I think validating yourself is a form of growing and it's a form of evolution. I've just had to stop running and I've had to stand still and really see what catches up with me. A lot of the time, they're very much staring at you in your face. And for me, it has been understanding that sometimes I'm not the best version of myself. And recently I haven't been the best version of myself. And I'm wanting to be. I'm in a place in my life now where I do want to be proud of myself. And that pride, I want to come from within. I don't want to have to find it in other people. But yeah, I think that's the topic of the week. I hope that you have gained something from this and found some type of understanding from my ramblings. Now let's get on to the interrupt me of the week. The interrupt me of the week this week reads, we were both toxic in the relationship, but focusing on me, I was mean and a horrible girlfriend. I changed myself because I wanted to be better, but he treated me worse. I swallowed it all just for him to leave me. I'm struggling with the guilt, with my self-respect, and I wonder why he doesn't feel bad for everything. Why do I keep expecting him to come to me and apologize, knowing it will never happen? First of all, I'm really sorry that you found yourself in a toxic relationship. Even if you thought that you were toxic, you don't deserve to be in a toxic relationship, and neither does that person. And I hope that you can both grow from this situation and find yourself in happy, fulfilling relationships. I think it's always tough, to be honest, to give advice on relationships, specifically toxic ones, because I haven't ever been in one and I can't necessarily relate to being in one. However, I think this interrupt me focuses on this understanding of self-worth, this idea of swallowing mistreatment to please someone else just for them to leave you is what I've been talking about in this episode, is understanding your worth without this person. This person does not make you you. You make yourself you. If you're waiting for someone's validation consistently and you're waiting for them to show up and you're waiting for them to apologize, it's not a lesson that you want to be teaching yourself. Is that you can only move on as soon as someone lets you know that you can. You can move on because you said so. You can move on because you told yourself you can. An apology might be nice from that person and it might make you move on quicker, but if that apology never comes, you can't just sit still and wait for life to happen. You've got to make life happen for yourself, and you've got to put the time and the energy into yourself because you deserve it. You deserve a great life and you deserve a great love, and I really hope that for you, and I hope that you know that you deserve that. I understand the feeling of wanting someone to come back and wanting someone to apologize, and that kind of dread of knowing that it probably will never happen. I think for me in the past, like I said, I haven't experienced this type of toxic relationship and the depth of it, but it has been a case of me distracting myself with other things and fulfilling myself in other ways, and understanding that I have a life outside of someone. I have a life outside of a relationship, and that's been really important to me. And I hope that this advice has helped you in some way. But that's the interrupt me of the week. I'm sending this person a lot of love and hope for the future. The recommendation of the week is Better Because by August James and Love You Through the DJ by Eli. I've been loving these two songs so much this past week and I wanted to let you know about them. But that's the episode of the week this week. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to rate the episode on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. It would mean a lot to me. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and on TikTok at Self-Interrupted Pod. You can follow me personally at kit.costello on Instagram and on TikTok. But other than that, I'm sending you so much love. As always, Kit.